Yo, what's going on, fellas? Sweet Phil here, and the Server Slam beta for Diablo 4 just wrapped up. Now, the game's launching in just a few weeks, and where exactly is the state of the game? I'm going to go over kind of what we learned and what we saw in the Server Slam beta. Now, first up was one of the worst things from the previous betas, and one of the best changes, one of the best improvements from that time, and that was to queue wait in order to get into the game. Now, before on the last beta, I jumped into the game right away and I got on kind of before everyone else, before the queue was super long. Well, I played for a little bit and then we all got kicked. I tried logging back in and I got hit with the dreaded 2-hour queue time. Now, for the Server Slam beta, that was completely eliminated. At no point at any time did I ever have to wait in a queue in order to get into the game. So they must have done some improvements with the servers and stuff like that. Now, there has been an argument, and I believe it might possibly be not totally incorrect, that because it was Mother's Day weekend, great choice on a date to do this, by the way, that there was not as many people playing, because I'm probably much like you guys, married, got my mom to go visit and stuff like that, obviously stuff that I want to do and take care of on Mother's Day weekend, so I couldn't play as much as I wanted to. So I would venture to guess that a lot of people either just completely skipped this beta, or were not trying to log on and not play as much as they did in the previous ones. But even if there was less people for the prior betas, even at the slow times, there was still 10, 20, 30-minute queues at times. So they must have had a pretty significant improvement to the servers. Now, for the bug fixes, the most notable ones, and probably one of the ones that drove me the most crazy, were going in and out of towns, or where you're crossing a particular threshold in order to start a quest. Now, those had essentially been completely eliminated. The only time I ever seen it was one time running out of, I believe, east of Kovashad, and I did hit the invisible wall, had to save and exit, hop back into the game. But that was the only time I ever had a glitch like that. Now, there were some other like world event glitches that I seen in the older betas, and those no longer are in this particular one. So those world event ones were fixed, where there was like individual instances where you would have to just protect a ghost that was walking around, or slay all these monsters and get the little reward or things like that. Those seem to have been completely fixed that I seen through my playing. But there was one glitch that I had never seen before. Maybe you guys did, and maybe you guys encountered it too, where you go down in a dungeon and you had to kill like 4 of these skeleton pillars or something like that. I don't know exactly what they were called, but I killed all 4 of them, took them out, and then the door was supposed to open so I could go farm the dungeon boss. Well, that door never opened. It said there was one to take out, and there was indeed not anywhere. I ran around the whole dungeon again, didn't see it anywhere, and it wasn't marked on the map. So there was a little glitch like that, but some of this stuff could have been fixed already, and hopefully they get that fixed up before the game launch. Dungeon design was a great improvement. It was kind of just a simple one. You just kind of got to put the tiles and put the paths in different patterns in order to make them more fluid and, well, let's just be honest, funner to run through. And they did. Even some of the ones, they used to be like giant, where you'd have to run off on different spindles to get this thing and that thing and then backtrack a whole bunch. Those were shortened up and maybe just put in a much straighter line. Or other ones where it would be a giant square around and you'd have to go off on different spindles on the side. They were actually turned into where it was literally just a straight line. Instead of the square connecting, it would run around in a square, and then the square just wouldn't connect. So it was literally just a straight line in the shape of a square. It sounds like just running in a straight line would be worse, but having to backtrack is an absolute disaster, in my opinion, on these styles of games. So I think the dungeon designs and just making them less backtracking was a vast improvement. The only time I ever did have an issue was my own damn fault, when I would be reading chat and I would just run right past like one of these skeletons that you had to untie or something like that. You know what quest I'm talking about. Now, a controversial one here that are going to have a lot of different opinions based upon which maybe Diablo game you come from or what's your gaming background. But the legendary drop rates were turned down to where they were supposed to be, instead of the incredibly crazy boost that there was for the previous betas. Now, I'm not sure if this number was confirmed, I can't quite remember, but I had heard that for the older betas, the drop rates were actually 3 times higher for Legendaries than they were for the actual base game. Now, in my opinion, and this is just the way I felt, completely anecdotal, maybe luck or not luck or whatever you want to call it, but it literally felt like maybe the older beta was like 10 times the drop rate, because I used to find Legendaries all the time in the other betas, and then in this particular Server Slam beta, I found, I think 1 or 2 legendaries that wasn't from either the quest drop, from the actual main quest, or from a Shava. Almost none. I made a drastic mistake, I suppose, of playing all the way through the game, and then I thought, hey, I want to see what this build does with a little bit more of these legendaries. So I went and farmed dungeons for 3 or 4 hours, didn't get a single legendary. So I was like, well, apparently that was a mistake. Went ahead and fired up another character. There was a particular way of getting legendaries that I would say in the main game, don't do this because they're going to change this. There's no way this is the way they wanted it or intended it. I'm sure it was just an oversight of some kind, but you would run around in that one high-level stronghold, just clicking on bodies, and every couple of minutes, another legendary would pop out of these bodies, and people fully legendaried out their characters that way. I specifically avoided that area because I didn't want to play the game in some exploited way that was not really showing exactly how the gameplay would exactly be when the game launched. Also on the topic of legendaries, you used to be able to go gamble them with the obols, I believe they're called, from whatever the vendor is that you can gamble from, and those rates were turned down a ton too, so those are right up there and along with the drop rates. I gambled like about probably 1,000 worth of that, which would be 20 different items approximately anyways, and I got no legendaries. A lot of them were just white and blue items, so that rate got turned down as well. Now, as for is this good or bad, this is obviously 100% an opinion, but I think that is much better. They were just raining from the sky like, I don't know, some of those games where items rain from the sky that I'm not really a big fan of. My background is Diablo 2, and obviously everybody knows from Diablo 2, the drop rates for the really good crazy stuff is incredibly low. But that's what makes it so exciting when you do eventually find one. It's kind of like this. Imagine if every single person won the lottery every time they played. Would that really make it super exciting and fun when you won? Sliding on to character balance. Now, this is another one that could kind of be a controversial one because everyone's opinion is going to be different, and also it's 100% opinion based. Now, I think they did a lot better job of getting things balanced closer together than it was before. Obviously, in the original betas, the Necro and the Sorceress absolutely melted the entire game. The Rogue was very good. Barb and Druid were absolute dog crap. I'm not going to go over everything on every one of these builds, just kind of the highlighted, because probably a majority of skills either got some sort of a boost or a nerf in this previous patch, so you're going to kind of have to look over a lot of that yourself. Now, unfortunately for this beta, because of, like I mentioned earlier, the absolute terrible weekend choice for this beta, I did not get a chance to try the Barb, but I got a chance to try the Druid. I thought it was pretty significantly better than it was in the other betas. Now, by no means do I think it was as powerful as the Sorceress, Necromancer, and the Rogue, but it was so bad before that it was essentially unplayable. Now, after you got like a full set of legendaries in Act 1 of the easiest difficulty that there is, yeah, it was wrecking in the other betas. But let's be honest here, you're not going to have all those legendaries. You might have some rares, some blues, and maybe even a white or two on when you're at level like 15 and stuff like that at the beginning of the game. And at that point in the other betas, it was absolutely terrible. Now, I had essentially the same type of build with the same type of gear that I was just describing there, and I was at least killing the bosses in a few minutes. I was slapping down the weaker mobs and things like that. So I really thought that some of the Druid skills, at least that I did try out, got a lot better. Now, what was I actually rocking? I was rocking Wind Shear, I was rocking Shred, Poison Vine, and I believe I had one of the debilitating roars or things like that. Now, the Druid, probably the weakest character that I did try, but like I said, it was still fun to play and better from the last one. Now, the Necromancer, obviously, there was a ton of really kind of outrage about how much they nerfed the skeletons, and this actually is a good thing that I'm about to tell you. Those skeletons were nerfed so bad, actually mid-beta, they did a hot fix patch to actually boost them up. Now, unfortunately, like I mentioned, like 3 times now, maybe even 4, because it was an absolute terrible weekend, I did not get a chance to go back and try those skeletons, because obviously Mother's Day is going to be more important than playing video games, but that is kind of a good sign that they're really thinking that much on their feet, putting in little changes for stuff that is quite obviously a mistake or an issue. But the Sorceress, obviously, like Hydra got nerfed and Chain Lightning got nerfed, but overall still a powerful character. I use Frozen Orb, it works okay, works reasonably. I was still rocking Hydra. It does okay as well, even with the nerfs. So the Sorceress probably, in my opinion, for this level of character, is in a good place. And the Rogue was the first character I played. It might be the character I play at launch because it is incredibly fun with its fast movement speed. Now, it kind of got the least amount of changes because it was in a pretty good spot, I thought, from before, and it is pretty much in a similar spot right now. Any of the little boosts or nerfs that it did get didn't really boost it up super crazy mega powerful or nerf it into the ground or anything like that. Still a very fun character to play. Now that's the main stuff I wanted to touch on that we learned from the Servers Slam beta. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe up if you're new to the channel so you never miss any of the future Diablo 4 content. Peace out, fellas, and don't forget to keep slaying.